With Thanksgiving just around the corner, I thought, why not do an American classic? Pumpkin pie! This pie is so easy. You'll be amazed at how it turns out. And don't worry if you've never baked a pie before, I'll guide you through every step. Don't even worry if you can't find canned pumpkin. I couldn't either, so that's why I'm going to use this thing. But I'm going to put a different video for that, so if you need to do that, click that link. If not, stay on here and we'll get cracking. By the end of it, we're going to have a delicious pumpkin pie ready for Thanksgiving. All right guys, washed your hands, got your apron on, found a place to work? So let's get the kit you need today to make this pumpkin pie. And remember, you can pause this video at any time. If you need to go back and look at the recipe, there's a link in the description below. All right, so we've got a mixing bowl, which we'll need to do the dough. We'll do the mixture in that as well after. We've got a pie dish. It's a 9-inch pie dish, which is about 22 centimeters long. We've got a whisk, measuring cups or scales, something to put some cold water in. It doesn't have to be that, it could be a mug. Pastry brush to brush the sides of the pastry so it's nice and golden and crispy and nice. And a fork and a rolling pin for our pastry. Great, now let's look at the ingredients. First thing, we've got this thing we need to deal with. You might too. So if that's the case, check out this video and there's our canned pumpkin, just like that. So easy. What about the rest of the ingredients? Okay, boom. Okay, so for the pastry crust, we've got 155 grams of flour, that's 1 1/4 cups. We've got 115 grams of butter, that's 1 stick of butter. We've got 3/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar, which works out to be about 155 grams. We've got 1/2 cup of cream, 1/2 cup of milk, 2 large eggs, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, vanilla, I think it's 1/2 teaspoon, and we've got our essential pumpkin spice blend. So 1 1/2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. That makes up the pumpkin spice. And ice. Oh, you'll find out what that's for in a moment. Right, let's get cracking. But before we do, we better turn that oven on so it starts to warm up. So it needs to be about 200 Celsius, which is 390 Fahrenheit. All right, guys, we're starting with the pastry crust. Now, don't worry if you're new to this. This dough is very easy and it's actually pretty hard to mess up. So, first off, we've got our flour. So that's gonna go into the bowl, and we've got 1/2 teaspoon of salt in there too. Next, we've got some really cold butter. This is super chilled. I've chopped it up already and I've been keeping it in the fridge because the key here is to have it really, really cold. The butter goes in. Right, we've also got our ice water here, which we'll use that in a second. So we're just gonna mix this up. Now, you could get in here with your fingers. You may remember we did that with the crumble. In fact, I find that a lot easier than smashing it with a fork. So we just want to squeeze these bits of butter into the flour, and we're after a sort of a coarse breadcrumb type situation.
And make sure your hands are clean before doing this.
Okay, there we are. It's already starting. We're after these big lumps here. And don't worry if there's still little bits of butter that you can see. That'll make it even more flakier. So, right, once we've done that, we're gonna get our cold water here, and then just 1 tablespoon at a time, we're gonna pop that in there and see how that feels. Get our fork back. Is that gonna come into a dough yet? Oh, I think we need another one. Not far off though. Let's get 1 more of those. Not a piece of ice. There we go, it's starting to get nice and sticky. And then we want to form that into a ball, sort of. Bring all the little bits of dough from the edges into a ball like that. And then you want to flatten it a bit. Now, you could wrap this in plastic wrap or just put a cover on it and then into the fridge for about 20 minutes while we get the filling ready. Okay, while our dough is chilling, we can go ahead and get everything else together. So for the filling, this part is even easier because it's just mixing everything into a bowl together. However, there is a good order to do it in. So first, you want to put in the pumpkin puree, then the brown sugar. Give those a good mix first. Then I've broken the eggs into a separate bowl, and it's a good idea to do that in case any shell gets in, and then I whisk them up in there first. So in go the eggs, and then we whisk it again. Then the milk and the cream. So there's half a cup of milk, half a cup of cream. Mix again. We can add our vanilla, so it's about half a teaspoon, but really it's not an exact thing, so that's probably good. And then the most important, the pumpkin spice mix. So, and we'll just sprinkle that in. And then give it a good old final mix so everything is nice and smooth. There we have it. And that is our filling. Right, tidy up here. It's always good to tidy up as you go. All right, our dough is chilled and ready to roll. Grab yourself a rolling pin. Make sure that surface has been dusted with flour, and you want to also get some extra flour on top there. Make sure there's plenty on your rolling pin, and then we're going to roll it out from the center. Turn it every now and then to keep it from sticking on the surface, and we're going to roll it out to roughly the size of this pie dish here. Now the key with rolling is to keep everything loose. So you want to have plenty of flour on that rolling pin and also underneath the dough. Then it's about lightly pressing on that dough as it gently expands. Don't worry if these edges are all rough like that, because we're going to cut those off. Right, we're almost there. Shall we have a check? Ooh, I think that might be good. That might be almost good. Let's just go a little bit further. There we go. Okay, now to transfer it into the dish, the easiest way, because if we pick it up on its own, it might break apart. So if you gently roll it onto the rolling pin like that, put the dish in there, and then you can gently unroll it onto the dish. There. Now we want this to go down inside the dish there, right into the corner. Okay, now we could just leave the edge like that. It's quite nice and rustic, but I'm going to show you a little cool technique to give it that extra touch. So if we cut this excess dough off here, and we're going for a relatively even circle, but don't worry if it's not perfect. It is homemade after all. Okay, now don't lose that dough. We'll use that in just a moment. So we've got our round circle. Then to make this edge a bit nicer, what we can do is do some pinching like that. If you go round using your fingers like that, and you gently pinch it, and you see what that does? It makes this really lovely edge there. So all the way around. Voila. Right, now give the base a little bit of a fork like this, gently like that. You're not going all the way through. This is just to let out some of that steam and to stop it from bubbling up. Because what we're going to do is we're just going to give it a bit of a pre-bake. Now, this is optional, but it means that you don't end up with too much of a soggy bottom, and no one likes a soggy bottom. So that's going to go in the oven, but only for 5, maximum 10 minutes. While that's doing that, we can deal with the rest of the dough here. So I've got a cool idea. If we make it back into a ball, dust your surface again, and then roll it out. What we can do is make some nice leaf patterns to go on top of the pie. Now, I didn't actually have any leaf patterns, but here's a little flower one or a star, but I'll find some and I'll put them in the description below so you can go and check those out. So, just gonna do stars, a little flower pattern. Great. Okay. Be really careful when you open the oven because the heat just rushes out. So this is our crust that's done what's called blind baking. You see that? It's not completely cooked, but it's just starting to turn golden there. We'll let this rest just for 5 minutes, just to cool down. While that's happening, we want to turn the oven down to 175 Celsius, that's about 350 Fahrenheit. Okay, now we can just put this filling into the crust. We want to go all the way like that. Doesn't actually take it all. And then carefully what you want to do, and perhaps I should have done this before, is brush the edges. Now I've got some egg wash here it's called, which is just basically a whisked egg with a bit of milk. And if we pop that on the edge of the pastry, then it'll go a nice golden color there. Okay, that's ready to go back in the oven. Oven gloves on, and be really careful. I should mention, if all the mixture doesn't fit in, don't worry. We can put that and use that in another dish. And that's going to be in there for about 50 to 60 minutes. When it's set and slightly jiggly, you'll see. Okay, while that's baking, we can have a clean up. Trust me, it's much better to clean as you go. Okay, carefully. I think this might be done. Look at that. So it's looking nice and brown. It's definitely set and still a little bit of a jiggly in the middle. So I think we'll take that out. Our pie is out of the oven and it looks amazing, doesn't it? It's got a slight sheen to it, and we'll put these decorations on in a minute, but let's let it rest for a couple of minutes. Did you know that pumpkin pie has been a Thanksgiving staple since the early days of the United States? Pumpkins were easy to grow, and so settlers started using them in all sorts of dishes. And that's how it found its way onto every Thanksgiving table. Let's get these decorations on here. I did actually manage to do one in the shape of a leaf, so I'll put that in the center. And how about some stars around the outside? Maybe there's a couple more here. We'll do those in the middle, under the leaf. How about that? Look at that. Ooh, that does look good enough to eat, doesn't it? Well, there you have it, your very own pumpkin pie. This is perfect for sharing with family and friends on Thanksgiving, or any time you want pumpkin pie. Thanks for baking with me today. If you had fun, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you get next week's video as well. Next week, I'm going to do another pumpkin classic. We're going to make some pumpkin muffins. Oh, I can't wait. See you next time.